I was watering my succulents when the phone rang. An unfamiliar chirp from a number I hadn't saved. It's probably another robocall selling burial insurance, I figured. I almost didn't pick up. "Hey, Mom," came the voice on the other end. Blinked, the hose nearly slipping from my hand. "Emily." "Yeah," she laughed, like this was a casual Wednesday thing. "It's been a while. 28 months, 2 weeks, and 5 days." Not that I was counting, my daughter's voice always carried a hint of command. Even when she was a little girl telling her teddy bear it had to eat its green beans. Now, it sounded smooth, tight, like she'd rehearsed what to say. "We were wondering," she started, "if you'd like to join us on a family trip. We're heading to New York next week. You know, a quick getaway. We thought it might be nice." I stood in my Arizona kitchen, surrounded by dusty sunlight and the soft ticking of my antique clock, wondering if I'd misheard her. "You want me to come?" I asked, cautious. "On a trip?" "Yeah, sure. It's been too long. The kids would love to see you." Her voice jumped half an octave, trying to sound warm. "We've got extra room in the suite, and the flight is already booked. All you need to do is show up." I didn't ask why now. I didn't press about the birthday they skipped, the surgery they called too late for. I didn't even ask if this was out of guilt. Instead, I smiled into the receiver like an idiot and said, "That sounds wonderful." That whole week, I was jittery like a teenager before prom. I ironed every blouse I owned, got my nails done in a dusty rose shade I hadn't worn in years, bought a coat from Macy's, not too loud, not too dull. I imagined how it might look in New York. The suitcase I dragged out of the attic had belonged to Harold. He always kept it clean and sturdy, even after the luggage wheels were invented. "Nothing wrong with zippers and handles," he'd say. Now it held my hopes and 3 pairs of orthopedic shoes. The night before the flight, I hardly slept. I sat at the edge of my bed rereading Emily's text. "Flight 7:10 a.m. Terminal B. We'll meet you there. Don't be late, Mom." And a little smiley face. The digital kind. It's like a peace offering. At 5:30 a.m., I was already at the Phoenix airport, boarding pass in hand. Emily had booked it. I didn't even know she remembered my middle name for. The TSA, I wore the coat despite the desert warmth. I wanted to look put together. On the plane, sat in the back. Alone, they were flying in from Los Angeles, meeting me at JFK. Too complicated to coordinate all from one place. She had texted, "Don't worry, we'll be at the gate." The flight was smooth. I sipped orange juice and read the same paragraph of my mystery novel 17 times. My mind kept playing out our reunion, the grandkids running up to hug me, Emily, finally, looking me in the eye with something other than obligation. I even imagined her husband, Tom, cracking a smile that didn't feel forced. But when the plane landed, they weren't at the gate. I waited, first patiently, then nervously, then awkwardly. A full hour passed before I got a call. "Hey, sorry, traffic was insane. We're just parking. Meet us at the check-in counter inside Terminal 4, okay? Let's wait in the lounge. We'll come grab you." There was laughter. In the background, a toddler squealing. Someone, Tom, I think, saying, "Do we really have to?" I pressed the phone closer, trying to focus. "You're sure you'll come get me?" "Yes, Mom," she sighed. "Just stay in the lounge. Don't wander." I stood there at the arrivals area like a leftover piece of someone else's life. Then, gripping the handle of Harold's suitcase, I followed the signs toward Terminal 4. My new coat heavy on my shoulders. When I reached the lounge, it was elegant, polished floors, low lighting, glass walls that showed planes taxiing in the distance. I lowered myself into a cushioned chair by the window, smoothing my coat across my lap. I watched every couple, every family walk by. None of them were mine. 10 minutes turned into 30. Then an hour. Then 2. I texted Emily. "I'm in the lounge by the window. Just let me know when you're close." No reply. I called. Straight to voicemail. Around the 3rd hour, an attendant approached, her voice gentle. "Ma'am, are you okay? Waiting for someone?" I nodded too quickly. Yes. My family just delayed. She offered me a cup of water. I accepted it like an apology I hadn't received. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The lounge grew colder as the hours crawled by. Even with the soft jazz playing from the ceiling and the clean scent of citrus in the air, I could feel it, that creeping chill of being. It's forgotten. I checked my phone again. No missed calls. No messages. Nothing. It was past 2 p.m. now. I had landed at 9:15 a.m. I texted again. Then I called again and again. Each time, it rang once, then went straight to voicemail. My mouth had gone dry, not from the airplane air. I stood and walked to the check-in desk. A young woman with Strax. A young woman with a name tag that read Kelsey looked up and smiled. "Hi, can I help you?" I was supposed to meet my family here," I said, my voice cracking in the back. "They said they'd come to get me. They haven't shown." Her smile faded slightly. She looked at the clock behind me. "How long have you been?" "Waiting a few hours," I whispered. "They were supposed to arrive from LA. Let me see if any connecting flights were delayed," she offered. I nodded, though I already knew what she would find. She typed for a few minutes, then pursed. Her lips. There was a 9:45 flight from LAX this morning. Landed on time. Another one at 11:10 also landed. Nothing delayed or canceled. I gripped the counter tighter. So they're here, somewhere. Kelsey hesitated. It's possible they forgot where to meet, or maybe they're outside. "Do you want me to call the number?" I shook my head. "I've tried." My hands were trembling now, and my coat suddenly felt like it didn't belong on me. Too new, too much effort for someone who was just invisible. I made my way back to the chair and sat. An older man across from me glanced up from his newspaper. Our eyes met briefly, just long enough for him to register the sadness I couldn't hide. He looked away. It was almost worse than pity. By 3 p.m., I made peace with the truth. They weren't coming. Maybe they had changed their minds. Maybe Tom convinced her it was too much work to deal with Mom's needs on a vacation. Maybe they had seen my messages, ignored them, and gone about their day. Luggage in tow, children laughing, me erased. Part of me wanted to cry, but another part, a deeper, darker part, wanted to rage. Not just at them, at myself for hoping, for dressing up, for thinking for one moment that I was still part of their story. My phone buzzed at 3:18 p.m. Finally, it was Emily. Text message, "Hey Mom, so sorry. Flight was crazy, kids were cranky, and we decided to head to the hotel directly. Thought it'd be better for you to rest at the airport lounge today. We'll call you later." No apology, no real explanation, just dismissal. Like I was some package they'd pick up later. Or not at all. And that did it. Something inside me hardened, not bitter, but clear. I stood, picked up my suitcase, and walked toward the exit. The taxi driver asked, "Where to, ma'am?" I almost said back to the airport hotel, or my daughter's hotel. Instead, I smiled. "Take me to the plaza." He raised an eyebrow. "The plaza." "Yes," I said, with more certainty than I'd felt in years. "I'm checking in." As we drove through the city, I watched the streets like a first-timer, though I'd been here decades ago, back when Harold and I were just married. We had walked these sidewalks hand in hand, lost in the magic of it all. I reached into my bag and pulled out my wallet. Tucked behind my license was the one thing I'd kept hidden from everyone, including Emily, my newly issued black credit card, my name engraved in silver. 6 months ago. Harold's estate finally settled after a long legal process. Turns out, he had stocks, bonds, and a property sold to a tech company for 7 figures. I had never told the kids. I never needed to. Until now, the doorman at the plaza tipped his hat when I stepped out. "Welcome, ma'am. May I help with your luggage?" I nodded, chin high. As I stepped through those grand revolving doors, I shed that helpless grandmother image like a coat I no longer needed. This moment was mine, and I was no longer waiting to be claimed. The lobby of the plaza was everything they said it be. Crystal chandeliers swayed slightly from the air vents. Gold trim wrapped every column like the city was showing off. The faint scent of expensive perfume lingered in the air, like even the walls wore Chanel. I approached the concierge. Pulling my carry-on behind me, it gave a tiny squeak with each turn of the wheels. That sound used to embarrass me today. It sounded like a drum roll. The man behind the counter looked up and smiled politely. He was younger, maybe mid-30s, and his name tag read Thomas. "Good afternoon, ma'am." "Welcome to the plaza. How may I assist you today?" "I'd like a suite," I said. He blinked. "Certainly. Do you have a reservation?" "No." I said, "But I believe you have rooms available." His fingers danced over the keyboard. "Yes, we do. May I ask what type of suite you're interested in?" "What's the best room you have, with a view?" "A sweet, quiet corner. Room, no distractions." He paused and then nodded, like he understood I was a woman not to be questioned. "We have the Grand Terrace suite available. Overlooks Central Park, comes with butler service, a private library alcove, and a rooftop garden balcony." I smiled. Perfect. He didn't flinch when I handed him the black card, didn't raise an eyebrow, didn't ask to speak to someone else. He simply said, "Excellent choice, Mrs." and glanced at the name. "Sharon Whitmore," I said. Softly but firmly. He nodded and ran the card like it was the most normal thing in the world, as if women like me, silver-haired, soft-spoken, polite, checked in every day with cards that could buy half the hotel. Maybe they should, as I rode the elevator to the top floor. I caught my reflection in the mirror. I wasn't the same woman who had landed at the airport this morning. I had dusted her off, straightened her back, and reminded her who she used to be. Before the kids, before the condescension, before they called me. Just the nurse behind my back. The suite was breathtaking. Ivory walls, gleaming floors, and windows so tall it felt like the sky might walk in for coffee. The terrace wrapped around the suite with a view of Central Park. That made me gasp. Real flowers lined the balcony. A velvet chaise lounge waited near the railing. I stepped outside, breathing in the city. It buzzed below like a machine of endless possibility, and for the first time in a long time, I felt plugged in. That night I ordered room service, not because I was hungry, but because I could. Lobster risotto, lemon soufflé, a flute of sparkling water. I dined on the terrace, wrapped in a soft robe that smelled like lavender and old money. I scrolled through my phone. Still no call from Emily, no voicemail, not even a message asking if I was okay. I opened our last message thread and typed, "Staying somewhere else tonight. Hope the kids are doing better." I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't need one. They had left me at that airport lounge like forgotten luggage. Now they could wonder where I'd gone. As I climbed into the silken sheets that night, I realized something. They had always seen me as fragile, a burden, something breakable. But I wasn't any of those things. I was steel disguised in cardigans and casseroles. And tomorrow I would show the rest of them just how wrong they'd been. I woke before sunrise. The city still half asleep under a pale blue sky. Central Park below looked like a painting, misty, hushed, untouched. I sipped coffee from delicate china and sat by the terrace window. The silence more luxurious than the suite itself. Then my phone lit up. Emily, finally. Her text was short. "Mom, where are you?" I didn't rush to answer. I let her wonder. A few minutes later, another ping. "You were supposed to wait at the lounge. We checked everywhere. Did you leave?" There it was, the panic. Not concern, not regret. Just confusion. That the pawn had moved off the board. I typed slowly. "I found other accommodations. Thank you for asking." The typing dots flickered. "What? Where?" "You didn't answer. We had to get through check-in. Security wouldn't let us back." "Mom, you can't just vanish like that. IRKED. Yes, I could. safe. I hope the wedding goes beautifully. Tell the bride congratulations." They didn't. Text again for hours, not until mid-afternoon when my son-in-law, Trevor, called. I let it ring. He texted immediately after. "Emily's upset. You're not where we left you. The kids are confused. You're making this about you now." Ah, there it was. The classic deflection. They ditched me at the airport lounge like a coat they didn't want to carry. And now I was the one making it about me. I set the phone down and walked away. I had a massage scheduled in 20 minutes. I wasn't about to be late. The spa was warm and dim, with a soft trickle of a fountain somewhere in the room. A woman named Lorena gently worked the tension out of my back. I hadn't realized how much I was holding in. "You have strong shoulders," she said. "I've carried a lot," I whispered afterward. She handed me a glass of cucumber water and a hot towel for my hands. I felt light. Seen. That night I ordered dinner again, this time steak with roasted truffle potatoes. I even asked the butler to light the terrace fire pit. Why not? They had left me behind. I was choosing not to be miserable. I watched the skyline glow like 1,000 secrets. Then my phone buzzed again. "Emily, Mom, are you punishing us? You know, we wanted you there. It's just things got hectic. You always take things too personally." My fingers hovered over the screen, and then I finally wrote what had been building in my chest for years. "No. Emily, you never wanted me there. You wanted me silent, small, waiting in the corner so you could feel like grown-ups. You told me to stay behind. At an airport in a lounge. Like an afterthought. I raised 3 kids on night shifts and bruised feet. I kept your father alive with my bare hands when the doctors gave up. And now I'm told I'm too much trouble to include. No, Emily, I'm not punishing you. I'm remembering who I was before you forgot." I hit send, and just like that, something broke open in me and something else healed. The wedding livestream link came the next day. I stared at it, thumb hovering above the screen. Curiosity was clawing at me, but I hesitated. Did I want to watch them celebrate without me? Smile into a camera like I didn't exist? I closed the app and turned off my phone. I wasn't a voyeur to my own exclusion. I wasn't going to witness a joy that deliberately shut me out. Instead, I slipped into a soft sundress, pinned my hair, and asked the concierge to book me a driver. "Anywhere in particular, ma'am?" The young man asked, smiling politely. "Yes," I said. "Somewhere beautiful, somewhere peaceful." The driver took me to the botanical gardens. It was warm but breezy. It's the kind of air that feels like silk brushing against your skin. I walked for what felt like hours past tulips blooming in proud rows, past families on picnic blankets, past lovers leaning into each other on benches. No one looked twice at me. Not with pity, not with annoyance, not with dismissal. I was invisible in the best way. Free. At one point, I passed an elderly woman sitting alone sketching flowers. Our eyes met. She smiled. "Beautiful day to reclaim yourself, isn't it?" she said gently. I laughed. "That obvious?" She winked. "Only to those of us who've done it." That night, back in the suite, I finally opened my email again. A message from Emily. Subject line, "You missed it." It read, "We saved you a seat in the front row. People kept asking where you were. It was awkward. You made it weird again. No photo, no wish you were here. Just blame and shame. They wanted me present enough to serve their image, but not real enough to be inconvenient." I didn't reply. Instead, I walked into the hotel's rooftop bar. Jazz played low in the background. Warm lights glowed on the terrace. I ordered a Chardonnay, took a seat by the edge, and watched the world move below, me unconcerned, unburdened, unapologetic. That's when I noticed a couple across the patio arguing softly. The older woman stood up abruptly, clutching her purse. "I gave up my life for you," she whispered to the young man. "And I wasn't even worth a chair at your wedding." He didn't follow her when she walked away. I blinked. My heart ached for her, for me, for all the mothers rendered invisible, the moment their usefulness expired. But I also smiled because she walked out with her back straight, dignity wrapped around her like a coat. And I knew that's how I'd carry myself, too. The envelope came. 2 weeks after the wedding, cream-colored, heavy, embossed with a law firm's name I didn't recognize. I thought it was junk at first until I saw the handwritten note. Clipped to the front, per Mr. Walker's final wishes. Please open this privately. My hands trembled. Mr. Walker, not my husband, not your father, just a man with a plan I wasn't part of. I stared at that envelope for hours before slicing it open. Inside was a letter, its handwriting bold, slanted, familiar. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and my kids probably made you feel like you didn't belong at my funeral. I'm sorry for that. I felt my throat tighten. You were more than a nurse to me. You were my sanity, my softness, my last great love. I pressed the paper to my chest. Tears fell not from sadness, but from finally being seen. Next came the documents, his will. It's properly notarized, dated just 3 months before his death. And that's where my breath caught. He'd left everything to me, not just a portion, everything. The house, the land, the pension, stocks. The boat in Florida I didn't even know existed. The kids weren't completely disinherited. They each got a modest trust. Okay. Locked tight until they turned 45. But the estate, mine, I sat in stunned silence. And then I laughed because suddenly everything made sense. Their dismissiveness, or snide comments, the exclusion from the wedding. They knew, or suspected. They thought by humiliating me, they could guilt or manipulate me into giving it up. They thought if they painted me as the help, I'd feel too small to claim what was mine. But they didn't understand something crucial. I had been poor, I had been invisible. But I had never been weak. The next morning, I walked into the same lawyer's office. Polished wood, gold nameplates, the kind of place that smelled like leather and certainty. The attorney, Mr. Bishop, stood when I entered. Mrs. Walker, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, I said, shaking his hand firmly. But I didn't come here for condolences. He smiled. I figured. You came to confirm everything is airtight. I nodded. And to make it clear, I have no plans to disclaim what he left me. I'm not here to be noble or accommodating. Mr. Bishop raised an eyebrow. Good, he said, 'cause frankly, ma'am, you earned every cent. I left the office lighter. I didn't owe them explanations. I didn't owe them forgiveness. Let them whisper. Let them stew. I wasn't their footnote anymore. I was the headline. 3 days later, I called. Them. All of them. Brunch at the house, I said. One last gathering. Just us. They hesitated, probably suspicious. But greed is louder than doubt. They came, all of them, Katie, wearing a fake smile and diamond studs the size of her ego. James, his tie too tight, his discomfort even tighter. And Lauren, my late husband's oldest, already checking her watch before she even said hello. The house was spotless. I made sure of it. Fresh flowers, real china, favorite jazz record playing faintly in the background. The air smelled like cinnamon rolls and truth. We sat, I poured. Coffee, made small talk. Watched them shift and squirm. Then I set down my cup and reached for the folder. I slid it across the table slowly like I was dealing cards in a high-stakes game. Lauren opened it first. Her face drained of color by paragraph 2. James let out a breath like he'd been punched. Katie. Tss, she laughed. This has to be a joke, she said, her voice rising. He was sick. He didn't know what he was signing. No, I said calmly. He knew exactly what he was doing. Stood, walked to the window, and for the first time in years, I spoke with every ounce of the authority they tried to rob me of. He knew what you were like, how you ignored him, mocked him, cared. More about what he left behind than who he was. And he knew what I was like. I held his hand through surgeries, cooked when he couldn't eat, slept in hospital chairs. And never once did I ask him for anything. I said nothing, just sat there, sinking in the truth like it was quicksand. I'm not asking for your approval, I continued. I'm letting you know I'm not stepping aside. Katie stood furious. You gold-digging. I raised a hand. Don't call me that. Because when your father was dying, it wasn't the gold he asked for at 2 a.m. It was me. Silence was sharp, almost violent. Then James said bitterly, so what now? You sell the house, kick us out of the vacation spot, cut us off. I looked him dead in the eye. No, I said. You're not kicked out, but you're not entitled either. I reached into my bag and pulled out 3 envelopes. I set up a trust for each of you. It unlocks when you turn 45. If you can manage not to act like vultures until then, you'll have something. If not, well, that's not my concern anymore. I turned to walk away. Lauren whispered, he really loved you. I paused, looked over my shoulder. No, I said. He respected me. That's what you never understood. That night, I sat in his reading chair, the one by the window he loved. The sun had just dipped below the trees, painting the sky a deep orange. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet that isn't lonely, just full of memory, full of peace. I reached into the drawer of the side table and pulled out the little cassette recorder he used when he could no longer write. His hands had trembled too much near the end, but his voice never did. If you're listening to this, then I'm gone. My breath caught. I want to say something I never got to say in front of them. You, my love, are not just the nurse. You were the only one who stayed. The only one who never asked me for anything but time. And when I didn't have much of that left, you gave me yours. I closed my eyes. His voice filled the walls like sunlight. They don't understand loyalty or love or sacrifice, but you do. That's why everything I built is yours now. Because you earned it not by blood, but by heart. A tear slid down my cheek, not from sadness, from this strange, fierce joy that comes from being seen. The next morning, I got up early, went out to the garden. He started and never finished it. Had been overtaken by weeds, forgotten like me. But I had plans. I pulled on gloves and started digging, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. This was my home now, not a borrowed room, not a favor, a legacy. Later that week, letter arrived. From his lawyer. Inside was a second note, handwritten in shaky script. Live, love, and outlast them. You deserve everything they tried to keep from you. I framed it, hung it above the fireplace. It wasn't revenge that warmed me. It was justice, quiet, complete dash. In the weeks that followed, they stopped calling, not because they didn't want the money, but because they finally realized they couldn't manipulate the woman they dismissed as just the nurse. I wasn't their maid or their doormat. I was his wife, his partner, and now the keeper of everything he left behind. I stood in the entryway as the first snow fell that winter. Thick, quiet flakes danced past the porch light and settled over the land like a blessing. I wrapped my shawl around my shoulders and stepped outside. For the first time, I wasn't bracing against the cold. I welcomed it because I was no longer empty. This house wasn't a mausoleum. It was a monument to love, to dignity, to me. I'd made changes. Not out of revenge, but intention. His office was now a reading room, walls lined with shelves that held his favorites and mine. The dining room, once filled with strained family dinners, now hosted weekly meals with the neighbors, old friends, and people who had once only seen the house from the outside, assuming it belonged to people better than them. It didn't. It belonged to someone wiser than them. One day I got a letter from his granddaughter, the youngest one, Ellie. The only one who had ever looked me in the eyes. Grandpa told me once that you read to him every night, that your voice made the pain go away. I didn't understand it then, but I think I do now. I'm sorry we didn't listen more. I'm sorry for what we said. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply right away, but I didn't throw the letter away either. Weeks later, she came by. No camera crew, no lawyer, just her. With a scarf over her head and shaking hands, I invited her in. She stepped through the door, looked around, and whispered, "It still smells like him." We sat for hours. No apologies, no justifications, just reckoning. She cried when I showed her the garden, how I'd kept his vision alive, how I'd planted his favorite irises beside mine. "Everyone's so angry," she said quietly. "But you just built something." I nodded. "That's what you do when love is real. You build, you don't burn." She looked down. "You think he forgave us?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I think he left enough space in his heart for grace, and that's all we can ever hope for." After she left, I sat on the porch as the moon rose. No noise, no chaos, just stillness. I thought about everything that had happened, the names they called me, the way they tried to erase me, the way they walked past me like I was furniture. And then I thought about him, the way he looked at me when no one else was watching, the way he whispered thank you with every breath. That was the truth. That was the legacy. I didn't need to prove anything anymore, not to the world, not to them, not even to myself. I just had to keep building, because that's what love asks of you when it's real. And I had chosen, once again, to answer with grace, with strength, and with the kind of quiet power they would never understand.